Hello, Oracles. Well, yesterday we saw Tesla fall over 5% and closing under $200. Does this mean we may be starting that pullback? I don't know. So, looking at it pre market, we're going to dive into that in a minute. We are going green slightly. We do have Investor Day in 1 week. Today at noon, we are going to be having Peggy and Farzad on the channel. We will be discussing Investor Day amongst many other things as well. So, we'll get some insight as to what we can see what might happen next week. Farzad's going to be down there, so it's going to be pretty awesome to discuss things with him. And we'll take a look at the stock price, and it's always a coin flip. Nobody knows for sure. Are we going to get a sell the news situation after Investor Day? Are we going to get a run into Investor Day? Only time will tell on that. All I can say is best to be prepared and agile for anything that happens, to be ready to take advantage of these opportunities, because long term, we are going to see very good things. We will get into all of this in just a minute. All right, so we can see here yesterday we closed down 5.25%, closing in at $197.37. So if we look at the RSI, we are now down to 58. And for those of you guys who are newer, anything on the RSI that is over 70 is considered overbought. And we were there for a little while, and I was anticipating a pullback to cool off. Now, if we go to the oversold range, which is under 30, this is kind of where we've been swinging. So if we go back to December here, we were oversold. Then within a month and a half, we went to overbought. So these swings may keep happening, because if we look back here, we kept swinging up and down. And then we were over here, we were oversold again. Then we go back a couple of months and then we were overbought. So this might be just kind of the swing that we are on right now. So this is what I'm paying attention to at the moment. But again, the RSI is at 58, and we've got Investor Day coming next week. But we have a lot of information we are going to be getting over the next few days when it comes to the macro environment as well. And as Open Skies here shares, key events this week will be today, the FOMC minutes coming out at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow, we get the GDP report at 8:30 a.m. And then on Friday, which is the most important of all, we will get the PCE index inflation report at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And while the CPI and the PPI give us some good inflation data, the Fed says that they usually go by the PCE report. That is what we get on Friday. So again, the minutes have been known to move the market. So the minutes we get today may give us an indication as to what the Fed feels like they are going to be doing for rates going forward. As we discussed yesterday, the market is starting to price in a 25 basis point hike for 3 more FOMC meetings in March, May, and June. And so we will just have to wait and see what the minutes look like today, and then we will get even more information at the March FOMC meeting, which is coming up in a few weeks. And then, of course, tomorrow with the GDP report, this is going to give us that indication of, are we heading towards a recession? Now, last year, you can argue we had 2 quarters in a row of negative GDP, so technically that was a recession. But then, as we remember, the government decided to change the definition of a recession, and so they changed that and said, no, we weren't in one. So either way, it didn't feel like we were in one. Things seemed like they were going pretty well last year. But now we're going to start paying attention to this GDP data going into this year, because if that is going to give us that indication that we are getting into tougher times, we're starting to see more layoffs, still mostly in the tech sector, but these layoffs are starting to come. So if the Fed is going to continue raising rates, it may end up forcing that recession to happen. Again, the GDP data that we get tomorrow will give us some sort of indication as to where we may be headed. Now, when it comes to the GDP report, we do get 3 of them. We get one each month of the quarter, and then the last one in the quarter is the one that's going to give us that indication and final number of what it is. So they do a couple of revisions. And then when looking forward and saying, well, we've got Investor Day coming for Tesla, and we've got so many great positive catalysts, how is it possible that the stock can pull back? Well, remember, it is not stronger than the macro environment. When we are looking at the entire economy and the entire world, Tesla is subject to moving with the entire macro environment. Now, what could cause this sort of pullback? What could be that trigger? Well, we've got Zelensky of Ukraine has said if China allies itself with Russia, there will be World War III. Elon's response, shock. Now, one thing to remember is we don't have to go to war for the market to react to this. Remember, when we saw the Ukraine-Russia situation beginning last year, we saw a more negative move going into the actual declaration of the war than when it actually got declared. Now, of course, we fell down significantly after that for many other reasons, but the actual anticipation of are we going to war or not caused a lot more red and panic in the market than the actual war itself when it was declared. So, this could end up being the same situation where we might get these escalations of talks of war and thoughts of what might actually happen, which could spook the market into selling off. And some can argue that was just the trigger for it, that was manipulated intentionally, or maybe it was true escalation and maybe there was a potential of that war. So many unknowns there, but either way, it is that unknown that could cause that red in the market. And again, after everything we saw last year, I cannot rule anything out. Always want to be prepared. There is no clarity as to what is going to happen in the future. For the last 10, 12 years, right up until the pandemic, not that we had completely clear skies, but there's a very clear movement forward in that bull market. We are not in that. We are a lot more uncertain right now. So we need to brace ourselves and just be ready for anything that can happen. And again, even as Elon said, in times like this, the stock can move in very irrational ways. And to end on a fun note, we've got Elon tweeting out recently, "High time I confessed, I let the Doge out." And you guys can let me know in the comments below if any of you own Dogecoin. I do. I actually add $1 to Doge every single day just because to me, when Elon was speaking about it and telling us that he does it for the people on the floors of his factories, they want him to support it. So he does. He has actually looked into it as a viable currency. And he has already mentioned many times that he would use it for Twitter. They have used it over in the Tesla shop for many things. We might actually see this being used as superchargers in the future. So there's a lot of potential, I think, in the future for crypto. And Doge, I think, is going to be one of them strictly because of the fact that, Elon is going to be supporting it. And with the Tesla ecosystem is going to be able to use Dogecoin as well. That is going to be a monster catalyst and place for people to spend this money. And so again, crypto is very risky. Don't know where it's going to go in the near term. It is a lot more volatile than the rest of the market. So, with that said, I think that we are going to see some nice moves with Dogecoin, but I just don't know when. Obviously, every time Elon tweets something like this, we get a bit of a spike, and then it tends to pull back a little bit because we haven't actually gotten to that point where we are seeing it being utilized as much. Plus, we are anticipating we'll probably see regulations coming to cryptocurrency in the next year or so. That to me is going to be a good thing. Some people say they don't like it, they don't want it to be regulated. But if you want the currency to actually be utilized by the big money that is out there controlling the majority of the money, then you want to have it regulated because they won't touch it if it's not. And so a regulation is actually going to be a good thing for this. And I think that could propel it forward even more in the future. And so, one quick last look at the charts. Pre market at the time of this recording, we are up almost 1%, pushing up to that 199, almost $200 level again. So we'll see if we can close over $200 today. Again, I've been seeing this right here. We've been consolidating in this handle after the cup that we just made. So now the question is, are we consolidating and maybe going to break out for Investor Day? Or are we consolidating and then get that sell the news situation for Investor Day? We just need to wait and see, and you guys can let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, we will be on live today at 12 p.m. Eastern Time with Farzad and Peggy. You guys can join us there for the chat. Otherwise, thank you for the support. We will see you then.